Well, right now, some new questions about our privacy as two major secure email service providers shut down entirely over the last 24 hours. One of them is called LavaBit. It's a service reportedly used by NSA leaker Edward Snowden to communicate over email without surveillance. The company announcing its suspension, saying it could not legally explain why, but it didn't want to be complicit in crimes against the American people. That's their quote. LavaBit's information may be of interest to investigators looking into Snowden's leak. Now, after that announcement, another company did almost the same thing. Silent Circle shutting its email service as a protective measure and destroying its own servers. The closures are raising some new concerns that even if email is encrypted, the government can still get to them. Judge Andrew Napolitano, our Fox News senior judicial analyst, is joining us. And I want to share with you, Judge, what the owner of LavaBit had to say in an open letter to anyone that's interested. He said, "This experience has taught me one very important lesson. Without congressional action or a strong judicial precedent, I would strongly recommend against anyone trusting their private data to a company with physical ties to the United States." What do you make of that?
Well, to a company with physical ties to the United States, meaning that the United States government will come knocking on the door of computer servers and say, you have an obligation to help us out. And if you don't help us out, we will get court orders requiring you to help us out. So if you believe that even if you, the service provider, believe that even those court orders would be unconstitutional, as in my view and in the view of many of us who follow this, they were, at least the ones that Edward Snowden revealed, then you have no choice but to shut down, because the failure to comply with a valid, even though illegal and unconstitutional, a valid that is signed by a real judge court order could subject you to punishment yourself.
So what are they getting, Judge? Because they're saying we can't talk about it. We can't even talk about what happened.
The government must have come knocking saying, we want to hook into your system so that we can access the people who are using you thinking they are immune from our access. And the server said, forget about it. And the government said, well, then we'll shut you down. And the server said, this is my hypothecating. I don't know, because he can't tell us, and I'll tell you why he can't tell us in a minute. The server said, forget about it. We're going to shut down and we're going to destroy our records, because we believe that if we let you, the government, hook into our service, into our servers, we will be violating fundamental American principles, even though you have a court order telling us to do it.
It's a federal offense if I send you a letter and someone opens that letter and just starts reading it, isn't it?
Yes, it's a federal offense,
so
even if the opener is a federal agent.
I know that's a very basic example, but is this an example, this story, of how the law hasn't caught up to the technology? Because reading this, it almost seems that it's safer for me to send you a letter rather than to email you at this point, because someone could be watching, listening, looking.
Here's what the law has done. The Patriot Act. This is the original Patriot Act in 2001. Its various amendments have taken it into other areas. Authorized federal agents to write their own search warrants for third-party providers. So a federal agent couldn't come knocking on your door with his search warrant authorizing himself to search your house, but he could come knocking on the door of your computer server or your doctor or your lawyer. And when they serve this self-written search warrant, which they call a national security letter, on the computer server, they say, it's a federal crime for you to tell anyone you've received it.
Which is why this guy says he can't do it.
Which is why he's saying, I can't tell you what happened to me.
So, a couple things, real quick, because I only have about a minute left here. Some say the effect of this is that U.S. companies that are based here that are doing this encrypted service are going to move offshore. So they're going to be out of reach. They're going to be in different domains. We're not going to be able to access them and the government as easily. That's one effect. But we have to bring in this other story from this week as well. We have a worldwide closing of our embassies overseas because of some sort of correspondence between our enemies. And that is used as validation, what we've heard, as a reason why these programs have to exist. So how do we take in these stories together?
The government quite prudently decided to shut down the embassies because it learned from sources in Yemen of real grave danger.
Say, but we're also hearing, Judge, that there was something bigger going on that we don't really know about.
In the Arabian Peninsula. Here's the question for the president this afternoon. Why do you have to get every email and every text message and every phone call of 330 million innocent Americans in order to capture the bad guys on the Arabian Peninsula? Why do you have to have in your possession the entire haystack in order to get a few needles? I'd like to hear him answer that.
We'll see if he does. 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Judge, thank you.
Pleasure, Jenna.
Kelly?